Right, I am back. So,
Okay, the second thing we wanted to go over in this session, Aaron, is a non-chess. We won't have a chess board for this video. You
yeah,
said you wanted to see it to talk through a checklist of things to look at when you're playing a game. I now just started to jot down probably all these things we've talked about already, but here they are all together. One thing I want to say before we start is this is I'm not expecting you or anybody to go over all these points on every move because chess doesn't work like that. We talked a lot about, and you talked a lot about flowing. Games have to flow, and you cannot
yeah,
play a chess game if you tick all these things off because that then it doesn't flow. But let's go through them, and yeah, I'll read them out, and please interrupt me if you want to discuss a bit further. First thing to look at any chess position, any strong player, any grandmaster who look at the chess position, the first thing to look at is the king safety because that's such a crucial thing. Where are the kings? Are they safe? Especially, of course, in an opening or a middle game position. In an end game, king safety is not as important because there's not so many pieces that can harass it. But king safety is the first thing that a strong player looks at. Um, are all my pieces happy? Am I playing with all my pieces? You know, we talked about it at length in the previous video. It's so important, and it's something that improving players are not very good at. And we saw that in our game as well. You had queen h5, bishop d3 because you saw a checkmate on h7. That's what you were after, instead of looking after everybody in your camp. And then play queen h5 and bishop d3. So you will, if you do this, you'll be ahead of 95% of your opponents, which is great because that will take you to the next level.
yeah,
Influence in the center, I know you're good at that. I mean, I look at your games, you're good at that anyway. So this is not something you need to improve on. You know it's important. When your guys are in the center, then they just have more of a range. They look at every angle, and that's why the center is important. That's why Napoleon wanted his soldiers in the center of the battlefield because that's the best position to be in. This is maybe one we haven't talked about, and it's a good one. If you don't know what to do, and there's no immediate tactics that require your attention, you can ask yourself the question, which is my worst piece? And can I improve it? You know, is there something undeveloped, or is there a piece that's not happy? For example,
yeah,
the bishop on h6 in our game, well, there was no way back for that bishop, but if there's a way back, can I try and move it back, or can I try to swap it to get rid of my worst piece? And that is something, maybe something new that is good to keep in the back of your mind. If you don't know what to do, and there's no immediate panic somewhere, tactical skirmish going on, can I improve my pieces? Make sense?
yes,
Okay. Are there any unprotected pieces on the board? You know, anything hanging? And that happens so much at your level. There's all sorts of stuff hanging everywhere. So if you see that, and even if there's not immediately something you can do with it, but maybe in 3 moves you may be able to do something with it. It's good to spot that pieces are unprotected in your camp and in your opponent's camp.
yeah,
Well, checks, captures, attacks. We always talk about that. That's really about tactics. Is any checks? That's a force move. Any captures is a force move. Is anything attacked? In the end game, you don't play a lot of end games at your level. Most games are decided before the end game. But in the end game, we have to play with our king. We want to keep the king safe in the opening and the middle game, but in the end game, the king has to take part in the battle. The king is almost as strong as a rook in the end game. That's a good one to remember. It's a very important piece in an end game to play with, to activate, to support those pawns going forward. You know.
yeah,
Well, this one is something we just talked about in the previous video. If I can give a check, is that the best move? At the low level, people always give checks if they can, and that's something you have to get out of now. That I still see you do it a lot. Yeah,
yeah,
this is also one. When you see a good move, look for a better one. Well, that's mostly when you have a lot of time. Of course, you play 10-minute games. That's your preferred speed, time control level. So you don't have a lot of time when you see a good move to look for a better one. You want to make sure 10 minutes for the whole game is not an eternity. But if you have time left, or if you have time ahead, you see a good move, and you say, well, let's look around a bit more. maybe I'll see a better one. It's a famous chess saying. And
Yeah.
this one you know very well. When you're material ahead, the easiest way to win in general is to trade down. Can you get the queens off the board if you're a piece up? Then 9 out of 10 times you want to do that because you
Yeah.
you make your own life easier.
In a couple of my games today, Rick, before I played you, I was up a piece, so I took the queens off the board, and when the dust settled, he had a rook, and I had a rook and a bishop and a
Yeah,
pawn. So that's why I started to let go of my queen there.
yeah, exactly. Because if he still has his queen, he might, there might be some trickery and suddenly he might have
Yeah,
an attack. So, yeah, material head trade down. Just from a practical point of view, it might not be the best move to swap the queens, let's say, but from a practical point of view, you make your life easier if you're material ahead to get pieces off the board. So, and by the way, it's good to get pieces off the board, not necessarily pawns. You don't want to be stuck with a rook and a bishop versus a rook and no pawns, because then
yeah,
it will be very difficult to win that. So when you material ahead, trade down pieces, not necessarily pawns. So I should really make that distinction: trade down pieces, but not necessarily pawns. Of course, if there's loads of pawns left, then fine. But if you only have you don't want to get rid of your last pawn because then end games might be difficult to win. Make sense?
yeah, of course.
So that's really what you asked for a checklist. This is what I can think of. Maybe there's one or two things to add to it, but this is this what you were hoping to get from this?
Yeah, one thing I also need to do is when I make a move, is it a safe move? That's a big
Yeah,
one for
yeah,
me.
true.
Um,
Very good point.
Is it a
Is
safe move? And that's one that obviously stole from you, really. Is it a
yeah,
safe? So that's a great checklist there.
yeah. I
Um,
probably didn't add it because I think you're beyond that now. I don't see you hanging. I don't see your put pieces on squares that are not safe anymore. I think
yeah.
you have when you were 500 rating, yes, we had to spend a lot of time on that because you were giving pieces up for fun, but I don't see you do that anymore as
Mm,
much. So that's something you really have got a lot better at.
thank
But it's
you.
good. It should be on the checklist. I agree. Anything else that you
No, did
think?
you have a tactics checklist there?
Well, I think this is the tactics, isn't it? Check, scrappers, attacks. These three.
Yeah,
That's what you look out for, and attackers versus defenders probably. So,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that falls maybe on their attacks anyway. Uh,
What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this and I'm going to put it in a way that obviously comes from sort of the way I would think. Um, and then sort of recycle it and put it, obviously use it and put it through through my lens, if that was not obviously remove any of this because this is all worthy and then show it yeah at a later date, really.
yeah, and again, it's something you're very much of a flow player anyway. So this is not something that I want you to print out and put next to your chessboard where you play. But yeah, in the back of your mind, these things
Yeah.
should. Or
And
when there's a yeah, go on.
you did say, I always said in one of my videos that we would at first this would be a bit sort of sketchy. I'd take my time. I'd be probably a bit sort of stop starting, and then over time it would become a split second. Like your friend, you says he can see a loose piece in a second, and that's
Yeah,
because he's probably gone through these bit like the Terminator, and then boom, oh yeah. So that's I've still got a lot of growth to do, of course, and I'm still in those early days yet. But no, this
yeah,
is brilliant. Thank you.
yeah, and also you talk about my friend who's an international master indeed, and uh, I've learned. I just remember when I just remember on this point, which is my worst piece, can I improve it? Sometimes we're analyzing a game and I'm yapping away about my position and everything I see. And he just sits there and all he does then is picks up a knight, lifts it up and puts it back down, saying, that knight is a terrible piece. So you have to
Yeah,
improve it. So he doesn't even use words. He just picks up a piece and puts it down again. And he tells me, shut up. All he talked about was nonsense. You need to get that knight into the game. Otherwise, you just piece down. So it's a very, very nice way he does that with me. Not with words, but just one little stern look on his face and pointing out uh, what is really important in that particular position.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Rick. This is brilliant.
Okay. All right. So yeah, in this position, he would have. Hang on, adjust this a bit. He would have picked up the bishop and says that is not a good piece. But that's from our game on the previous video. Anything else on the
No,
checklist?
no, Rick.
Okay.